Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
I'm Chris Clements.
And we are grateful and lucky
Again
to have Congressman Schweikert here.
And I was teasing the two of you. Thank you for dressing up. Why am I the idiot in August wearing a tie?
I have a long sleeve shirt on.
Yeah.
Because I knew that you would be here. So I'm not wearing flip flops.
Yeah.
And he has a collared shirt on.
I've got a collared shirt
So
on.
we are
Collared
making
shirt.
progress because you're here.
Yeah. And I assume this was a bathing week, right?
Yes.
Well, I mean, we did have our morning workouts.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that he
I did take a shower.
Oh,
he took a shower.
what's it like to have a life where you can wake up, you go to the gym? I'm chasing, a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old making their lunches and then trying to get out to the
Yeah.
speaking
In order
gigs.
to do that and do that effectively, you've got to get up at 4:30 in the
Right.
morning and make it to
Yeah.
the gym by 5.
You see, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Well,
I've been
and
doing that now for 20 years.
It actually that raises an issue that I thought a lot about over the last few weeks, because there are, being a member of Congress, and I haven't been one. I've worked for
Well, you
some.
know more about it because you spent a decade, trying to manage the chaos there.
Yeah. So it is, and people just truly don't appreciate the level of sacrifice that members of Congress have to make to actually do this job. And I know
Yeah.
you don't like to hear that because people mostly don't believe it.
Oh no!
But-
And you get the insanity. How much money do you make? And look, and my wife was calculating the other day. When I leave, I'll leave probably with half the wealth I went in with, which is fine. Look, we're fine. But the problem is people see things on television. Oh, they're riding in limousines. About a third of my meals come from the vending machines at the bottom of the Cannon House office
right.
building.
You are unique.
Well, I also don't really socialize. I don't drink. I don't.
But you don't go out to all the different things that happen around DC. You're not a DC animal, nor have you ever been. But I think when people read about like the latest big thing about Jasmine Crockett and the fact that her staff has not seen her in 2 months, and then she lives in a $1 million apartment off of DC, and she has. Do you hear about this?
No.
And she has a rental car. She makes her staff rent a Suburban or a Cadillac and pick her up, bring her to Congress, where she goes. She doesn't go to the office. She goes to committee meetings, and she gets there, gets her sound bites in, and then she has them drive her back and then return the car.
Okay, this is going to be a little bit different.
It's crazy.
But what do I believe? And I can prove this. What's the most dangerous thing to an elected official, whether it be your town council or governor or senior member of Congress? What's the most dangerous thing? I'm going to say vanity.
Yeah.
Oh,
Look, I when I was a child, I served.
identity, like this idea that you're important.
But when I was a child, I served 2 terms in the state legislature, and then was never going to do politics again. You remember, you helped me around that time. But I was a freshman. I was a 28-year-old freshman representing the Scottsdale area, and as scam broke out, indicting like 10% of the legislature.
Right.
But that summer, I read 28,000 pages of transcript. And I realized it wasn't about the money. It was about this desperate need to feel loved, to feel important, that vanity. How do you think lobbyists make their living? They come in and they flatter you. They tell you how tall and good looking and how smart you are. Oh, and by the way, I need you to do this piece of legislation to give my company money. Vanity. All right, we're just friends right now talking. You've been there. I've never worn my pin, other than when there's security and the president's on campus. My pins, as a member of Congress, are still in their plastic bags because it's a display of vanity. Now, it means as an idiot, I have to stand in line. Often when I'm going into certain buildings or those things, instead of I have my pin, they walk around. If you fall in love with the job, if it identifies you as you're going, if it's part of your identity, you will sell your soul to keep it.
Yeah.
And
That's so true.
I'm in a 50-50.
Came from a Bible study on this very issue, so it's top of mind.
But actually, part of not wearing the pin is actually my family. Like I drive a 12-year-old Ford F-150 long bed, and it's plain white. We don't drive fancy cars. We have a nice house, but it's displays of vanity we consider gauche.
You put up your own signs.
Yeah, but I'm insane.
No,
and it's my gym.
That says something.
Well,
Yeah.
but we
That
also,
is unique. You're a unicorn in that regard. You put up your own signs. You make sure you know where they are. In fact, you have an app that tracks where they are.
we built an app.
I tell people that they're like, "What?" I go, "No, he's taken Morton Blackwell to just a whole nother level."
Yeah.
Well, you remember I used to teach Morton Blackwell's polling class back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it's also one of the reasons I'm just so, well, let's be brutally honest, so angry at Washington and most of the people I work with. I like them as human beings, but so many of these folks who tell you, I'm ultra MAGA, I'm really conservative, and yet when you ask them to do something that's hard, they run away from you.
Yeah.
I'm in a functioning a 50-50 district. You live in it. It's a war. I am now the Democrats, I believe, most expensive loss if you add up like the last 3 or 4 cycles.
Oh, easily.
But it's a well-educated community and fairly entrepreneurial. And I think within that, they demand someone that just tells the truth. So how does an idiot who represents a 50-50 district be almost the only one in Congress who's trying to educate? Here's what's about to happen with Social Security. Here's about what's happening with Medicare. Here's what's about to happen. And there's paths. I've introduced the legislation to at least stabilize parts of the debt. And it's going to be the last slide if we use the slides. And I'm sort of doing this backwards. But one of the reasons I'm so incredibly annoyed is on the big, beautiful bill, I showed up with legislation to pay for it. That was my deal with the speaker.
Right.
They helped me have a PhD. I chair the Joint Economic Committee, so I have like 5 PhD economists. And I couldn't get a single member of Congress to sponsor the legislation with me because one has the word Medicare in it, but it's Medicare Advantage. We already have all the data, all the articles, all the MedPAC, all the Wall Street Journal stories about the waste and fraud being the single biggest fraud in United States history.
Wow.
CBO has now given me a score, not 1.7, but a preliminary 1.84, making it the single biggest savings bill over 10 years in U.S. history. But because it has the word Medicare, I can't get a single member of Congress to co-sponsor it with me. and we have now visited 50, what you would consider the most conservative offices in America. So I'm starting to believe I work with people that are theatrical players.
Well, I think that is part of the problem is that Congress has become more theater than anything else, and that's fairly. I think that's part of the advent of social
example
media,
I just
right?
made with
Yeah.
Jasmine Crockett. It's all about theater. It's all about the clicks and coin.
Well, I've actually had the occasion where I'm giving a speech and I'll get the precinct committee person come up and say, I don't think you're conservative enough because I don't see you on OEN or Fox or this and that. They associate conservatism with seeing someone, or you're not MAGA enough because I don't see you on television saying angry things.
Yeah.
And then you point out that the very people they're in love with are the very people who won't sponsor difficult bills, run away from action. But on television, they sound brutal.
Yeah, they sound great on Hannity. But whatever.
The reality of
that
the
doesn't
work
get the
product.
work done.
Yeah. And so, look, I'm blessed. I represent a district where really well educated. They're a hell of a lot smarter than the average bear. And maybe that's why I'm able to survive in treating people like adults. I mean, look at my newsletter. We have almost 80,000 subscribers. And it's not fluffy stuff.
There's nothing sexy about it.
We do, but it's factual. Like we did the whole thing yesterday on the newsletter of what's going on with the post office and the contract.
Oh yeah.
And next week we're going to do something on how statistics and are gathered in the federal government. Treat people with respect because I believe the voters are much smarter than the politicians.
And giving them actual facts rather than sound bites. The newsletter, you because the BLS stuff that's topical, right?
Well, and it's also my responsibility. I chair oversight and Ways and Means, and I chair the Joint Economic Committee. Guess what idiot has to actually, and we'd actually been working on this for about a year, because one of our problems is response rates have crashed since COVID. And because of that, we have all this slop. I'm just going to use that as a word in the variants, where some of the responses come back from small and medium businesses weeks later, a month later. And we're trying to figure out, is there other ways to do the sample where, yes, you do the traditional responses, but then use other data and transactions to start to supplement it. It's time to modernize.
Absolutely.
I think we go to the very first slide? I don't know if we're going to show any of these.
Yeah, we can put them on the screen. Let's see.
And look, you've all
seen.
This is
so inspiring.
So if you're just listening and you're not seeing this on YouTube or on the video, this is a pie chart of federal spending, of which 74% is mandatory spending and net interest. That is stuff that Congress has no control over, and only 26%, non-defense and defense, is what you guys actually vote on.
Yeah. So
26% of the entire budget.
And one of the punchlines for people to understand: Social Security is the biggest spend. Interest now is number 2.
That's unbelievable.
Medicare is number 3. Defense is number 4. And if you actually, because we break non-defense, we break up because non-defense is a bunch of different things in one category. But if you also add in Obamacare, Medicaid, those things, defense in the next couple of years will be number 5.
Wow.
And in about 15 years, interest is the biggest expenditure in the federal government.
In terms of that trajectory.
So let's go to the next slide, because the next one is the one that if this doesn't terrify you.
Yeah. So this slide shows that for every dollar in tax receipts the federal government gets, it spends $1.43.
This is our projection for next year.
Just next year.
For
this
next
isn't
year.
like 10 years down the road.
No,
this is
no.
literally next year.
This year, our math, and last year we vetted it. This year, we were hoping that the tariff revenues were going to be more than they are. That we're going to take an extra 75, maybe 80 billion, but we're still going to end up borrowing about 2.2 trillion this fiscal year. So this fiscal year, for every dollar we take in tax collections, we're going to spend about $1.39. Next year, we're going to spend $1.43. $1.43 for every dollar we take in tax collections. And the punchline here for anyone who actually gives a darn about the actual math, the real driver is demographics. And there's some slides in this deck that will show you we don't have children.
Yeah. It'd be good. Alex, go to the slide. It's the 2004 to 2024.
Go back one, because this one, let's just, this is really, really, really important, and I'm enraged. Democrats lie about this and saying, if we just tax rich people a little more, we'll be fine. It's mathematically not true.
Yeah.
And Republicans lie about it by not talking about it. In 7 years, Social Security Trust Fund is emptied.
Yep.
And it's not emptied because someone stole the money. Yeah, there's some issues, but they're rounding errors in the scale of the program. We got to fix those issues. But the other side of that is also the Medicare Trust Fund is empty in 7 years. But Medicare spending this year will be about $1 trillion. In 7 years, it'll be $2 trillion.
And
so it doubles in that time. Well,
it doubles, and then the trust fund empties.
Well, then there's a cliff.
Well, actually, what happens is you can go to the next slide. In Medicare, the Medicare Trust Fund only covers about 38%. About another 15% the individual pays for. The rest just comes out of the general fund.
Right.
Most folks don't realize Medicare is not completely paid for by the payroll tax. Most of it actually comes out of the general fund. But what's absolutely immoral, and it's not Republican and Democrat, it's demographics. In a few years, we're functionally going to have one person in retirement for about every 2.2 people working. It's just starting in 1990.
There's less money coming in.
We had substantially fewer children.
Yeah.
But in Social Security, in 7 years, you take a 24% cut in your check.
Jeez.
That's the law. We will double the poverty of seniors in 7 years. If you're a hospital, if you're a surgery center, if you're certain doctors, you take an 11% cut automatically because the Medicare trust fund is empty. These are the types of things that if you had adults who were willing to talk to you like adults, but most folks prefer the sort of the conspiracy because it gives you a chance to blame someone behind, make up a story. It's illegals. And then you show them, hey, every dime in illegals, here's what the actual math is. Yeah, what Biden did with the border, absolutely crappy. It's suppressing wage growth. You can actually see that in the Social Security actuary report. We're making poor, even today's inflation numbers, you see wage growth, working poor are getting crushed because they're competing against so many other low-skilled workers. But we have a structural problem. If you go a couple slides further, you'll see it's keep going. You'll functionally see we have fewer 18-year-olds today than we did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But functionally double the number of people 65 and up.
Go to the next slide, Alex.
And this
slide, this is what just blows my mind. We barely increased age 18 from 4.1 million in 2004.
And as a percentage, of the society, it's actually down.
Right.
And the problem is next year's 18-year-olds are smaller,
right.
And the year after that they're smaller, and year after that they're smaller. And yet in the next couple of years will be as high as 70 million Americans 65 and up.
Yeah.
It's just demographics, it's math. But we're terrified to tell the truth because when you tell the truth, you may actually have to do something. It's hard.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we've been talking, you've been talking about this as long as I've known you. And what is it? It seems like we've had different windows to do something, and yet we just punt every single time.
Yep.
Republicans get scared. Democrats demonize everything Republicans try to do. And then, and refuse to accept the math is what you're saying.
We live in a world where I think the political class has lied for so long, and the public often prefers solutions that are simple. Guess what? You and I can fix Social Security. Now, we'll probably need to go spend a bunch of money with actuaries, and we worked on a plan that had like 24 components, and there were Democrats and Republicans. We all worked in a secret room, and then the Biden administration knifed us because they cared more about the political issue. Who's the single most powerful group to stop saving Social Security is actually, I believe, political consultants, because they prefer the issue to attack the opponents than saying, look, we got to hold hands and deal with the reality of it.
They prefer the image of Paul Ryan, dumping Granny off the cliff.
Well, and it's
to use that in perpetuity.
It's definitely every Democratic consultant, but there's a bunch of Republican consultants
do the same
who do the same thing because they know how toxic.
This is a bipartisan issue.
This topic is.
But what I found is if you're just consistently and you're accurate on the math, and look, there's a series of things going on, and it's complicated. And you have politicians that want to give you one simple little shiny object and not understand there's hundreds of things you have to do, and you have to do them all at the same time. You got to get the tax code right. You got to fix the regulatory code. You got to move to a talent-based immigration system and lock down the borders and start importing poverty. There's all these things, but you have to legalize disruptive technology, because things like the ACA, the Obamacare, that was a finance bill. It's who had to pay and who gets subsidized. The Republican alternative was a finance bill. Medicare for all is a finance bill. But apparently we're terrified to have a conversation of maybe we could adopt technology, processes, incentives to be healthier to lower the actual cost of healthcare. Look, what's on your finger?
This Oura ring.
You have an Oura ring. What's on your finger?
Oura ring.
I have one too. Maybe we can all share our data. But the fact of the matter is there's some brilliant...
And I have a Garmin.
Yeah. but
Double-fisted.
Look, the three of us, we've all done fine in life. But we're now starting to see technology when next year's Apple Watch is an FDA-approved medical device for the heart. When now this Oura ring can pick up small body temperature. And so if my temperature starts spiking every night, I need to get to a doctor.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is
we send warnings to you.
Exactly. But we live in a time of miracles, yet much of the money in healthcare, and I'm just using healthcare right now, but this is all through government, doesn't want to change.
Yeah.
Their barrier to entry is we're going to keep doing it the old way and lock out technology. Before the pandemic, I had, you actually helped me, had a number of pieces of legislation to do telehealth, where you could use your phone, talk to your doctor. It was one of the most, if not the most lobbied against. Here in this market, they spent millions beating up, David Schweikert wants to get between you and your doctor-patient relationship. But who was paying for those ads? It wasn't actually healthcare. It was real estate. Real estate had, a couple REITs had bought these urgent care centers.
Yes.
Some New York groups had bought emergency rooms, and they were fearful a nationwide telehealth would stop people from walking in the door. You could check with your doctor on your phone.
Yeah.
It's about the money.
Right.
And
Is
then
it
the only
about the
reason,
money? That's what you keep
it's
saying.
always
all
about the money. We need the public. We need you to start demanding that the electeds, start stepping up and using their intellectual capital to say, we are going to disrupt the system, make things less expensive, and maximize productivity. Because the only way you survive this crushing debt and the fact that we're going to have a shortage of young people, which there's lots of countries have dealt with debt problems. There's never been a time where the entire industrialized world is dealing with massive debt and fewer young people.
Yeah.
The only solution is we got to stabilize the debt and then maximize productivity. We got to stop being afraid of technology. We got to find ways to put it into our society to do things better, faster, cheaper.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's, in my mind, that is why AI is really important. I mean, there's a lot of people afraid of it, and I get that. But if we can harness it in productive ways, it will save us.
Yeah.
And I mean that from the standpoint of like your point about productivity, because we do not have the workforce coming up to keep the economy afloat.
But so often I'll end up in front of groups and their solution was a great solution if it was still the 1990s. And now members of Congress, I cannot tell you. Well, you guys know a bunch of members of Congress. They're all smart. They all are great communicators because that's how you get elected today. But a lot of them are sort of trapped decades out from how you do things.
Yeah.
And I'm just exhausted. I'm tired of fighting with everyone and trying to push saying, look at the numbers. The other thing, and this is where if you have anyone, it's one of in your viewership that's a geek. I will get Democrats to say, well, just raise taxes. Okay. If you go to Manhattan Institute, Riedel, it's about 1.5 years old. He did an analysis of functionally all the tax hikes the Democrats have proposed.
Yeah. And
did the economic adjustment. And you get about an additional 1.5% of GDP if you do all of it. Okay. And then the cut side from Republicans that are actual cuts that we might actually have votes on, we get about another 1%. So if you do them both, 2.5% of GDP, we're going to borrow about 7.2, 7.3% of the entire economy this year. And in 9 years, we're borrowing 9% of the economy. It turns out the Democrats raise taxes, and often we talk about we're going to slash and cut. Great. You need to modernize and change. There's a whole bunch of government you need to decide we just don't belong doing.
Yeah.
When the state of Arizona, about 45% of its budget comes from the federal government, and almost every dime of that is borrowed. Should the federal government borrow money and at this level send it to states when 18 states have a higher credit rating than the federal government?
Oh, my.
Hell, 12 countries have higher. Greece can sell a 10-year bond cheaper than the United States
Which
today.
is astounding.
But you need to start
10
to
years ago, that was not the
process
case.
these ideas. I would argue one of the reasons politicians and the news and the social media, they give you crazy sort of shiny objects to get your dopamine, to distract you, because this stuff is hard and it requires thinking.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Well,
but you're also having to upend structurally the way things have been done for decades. I mean, you're talking about healthcare. I think what the government is trying to shed light on now is a healthcare system that just treats symptoms and not causes, and that's been the case for. Those are the incentives that are in place. Look, have been that way for decades.
My Joint Economic Committee a couple years ago, we stepped on one of the third rails and spent months and months. And these are people with PhDs in healthcare. Data statistics showed that obesity adds about $9.2 trillion in additional spending over the 10 years, making obesity the single, if you take it down to a line item, most expensive thing in our society. Milken, and now it's a few years old, said 47% of all U.S. healthcare is associated with obesity. We now also know that obesity, some people it's genetic, some people they don't break down sugars the same way. Yep. But should we actually have that all-in discussion of one of the ways we help stabilize debt and build a healthier society that can be more productive, that can have families, get married, participate, go on a hike? We have a number out there. There's about 7 million prime-age males missing from the labor force. That's what part of the fight over Medicaid and work requirements, those things were. But one of the data sets, and we're still chasing down because it's so hard to research this, is of that 7 million prime-age males that were missing from the labor force, people said, it's drugs. Turns out obesity may be bigger than drugs.
Yeah.
So should you change how we do agricultural support and what we grow? Is it moral to give someone an EBT card, modern food stamps, to go buy onion rings?
Or soda. Or chips.
But it's more, look, I'm more of a constitutionalist. I'm a traditional hardcore conservative. I believe in freedom, but these are things where you're asking society to help you out. Should society at least ask a try? So like we're trying to design an ACA compliant plan that would incentivize people, saying you can get little shiny objects, maybe a check, maybe a debit card, maybe a hug, if you'll do things, you'll stabilize your hypertension. You'll do the things that make you healthier, instead of the world we have right now, where much of insurance and healthcare actually needs sick people.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's the problem, is that the incentives are completely perverse.
Everything's backwards. And I don't know why you don't find more Republicans and Democrats step up and talk about the actual math and also the morality of, in 7 years, grandma takes a 24% cut in her Social Security check. That is immoral. We double senior poverty. The way we finance, incentivize healthcare. We have a sick care system. What can we do to incentivize healthcare, but being a healthier population? Research and development. Where's our money go to actually cure people instead of maintain misery? There are solutions, but with the growth of debt, which is primarily interest and healthcare driven by demographics, we don't have many more years before you start to hit what's referred to as an interest spiral.
Yeah.
Last year, I think we had 3-4 months where we had to borrow money to pay for our borrowing.
Yeah.
You got to think about this. So in 2034, 2035, 30% of all U.S. tax collections go to interest. If interest rates were to go up 1%, in 2035, 45% of all U.S. tax collections go just to interest. This ain't a game. And that's why I get so sensitive about we need to make sure investors who buy our bonds, that maybe your pension system, your IRA, the 25% or so that's bought by foreigners, that they believe we're a safe bet. And that's why when you get into discussions of BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or the Federal Reserve, or those things, we may have intense frustrations with how they're doing their jobs. In that case, use Congress to set rules that fix those problems. But don't make markets nervous because little ticks up in our interest.
Yeah.
We're going to have to refinance like $10 trillion, let alone sell another 2.2 to 2.4 trillion next year. Don't, forgive my language, piss off your bankers.
Yeah.
Because if they charge you more, all the savings many of us are working on get taken away by higher interest rates.
Yeah, it's wiped out. Alex, go to the last slide. Let's talk about your solutions, because I think this is fascinating stuff. You pointed out at the beginning that you couldn't get anybody to co-sponsor.
And these were just solutions to pay for the big, beautiful bill.
Yeah.
So the big one there, you see the $1.760 trillion. Our preliminary number now from CBO is 1.84 trillion. So we just got a verbal number. And that's, if any of you, Medicare Part C, we call it Medicare Advantage. If you're curious, just right now, go to your search engine, go to Google, and put in Wall Street Journal Medicare Advantage. You'll see a whole series of articles that they wrote over a year of the scale of fraud.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you're taking on a couple of the biggest insurance companies in the world. Now, some of them are actually, there's a couple of the Medicare Advantage providers that have been remarkably good to work with. They've been showing up with actual solutions of how to lower costs. But Medicare Advantage is a Republican plan. We developed it. It went into effect in 2005. Senator Frist, who was what was he, a heart surgeon?
Yeah.
And it was the idea of we're going to do managed care, but where they're going to fixate on helping populations be healthier. Through a series of changes, particularly Obamacare, they added things but you can score your population as sicker and draw down more money. So it became chase the scoring of sickness.
Yes. Right. Just completely
instead
toppled
of
the whole
investing in being healthier. So the original design was it was supposed to come in at 95% of what fee-for-service is. Today, it comes in at 120% of fee-for-service, according to the MedPAC report. Yeah. Just that delta there is almost $2 trillion over 10 years. We've been getting this, and this is a technical accounting term, this big-ass MedPAC report every year, and no one breaks its spine and reads it.
Nobody actually opens it.
We've been doing analysis, and I got so frustrated. So a year ago, it was one of my deals with the speaker. He let me hire a healthcare PhD. And we spent almost a year analyzing what little steps you can do to actually invest in helping grandma be healthier so she uses less healthcare and lives better and longer. The second bill, the 3785, that one is sort of a no-brainer, yet it's war. There's money sitting in accounts. Some have been there for years. We're going to build a bridge, and then they never get the permits. They never do it. But the $300 million is sitting there.
Interesting. So
we call
unspent
it
money.
We call it forgotten funds. And I actually did that. If you get my newsletter, we did a whole series thing on that, and there's more coming. And that's really more just sweeping dead money that's sitting in all these accounts. But what you find is Democrats like the slush fund. Republican appropriators like the slush fund.
Of course they do.
And I have some people in the White House who like the slush fund, but we're paying interest on it. This is borrowed money we're paying interest on. Just sweep it back. The third one, and I've been going from right to left, the 3466, that's the president's talent-based immigration, the golden visas. You take in about it. We estimate about 150, 160 billion additional revenues over the 10 years. But what happens is that actually helps spike productivity in the future years.
Right.
Because instead of opening up the border and importing poverty, you bring in the talent that maximizes talent-based immigration. You maximize productivity.
Yeah.
And so that actually scores not only in tax receipts, but also raising GDP growth. And we got to do that. We don't have a choice.
Yeah. It's the only way.
But this was just to pay for the big, beautiful bill. We have other things to try to stabilize the debt. And there's a reason I walk into the meetings where we're going to have a meeting on debt and deficits, and Schweikert walks in and they run out of the room because I'm showing, instead of just doing a whine fest, we got to cut spending. Okay, here are actual bills that have actually been vetted, actually written by economists and smart people, taken to CBO for scoring. And you've been there. There's a hell of a lot more speechifying than there is ever actual work.
Yeah.
And I'm just so blankety tired of the theatrics of, I'm an ultra-mega conservative as long as I don't have to do anything that's hard.
I don't want to have to take any tough votes.
And they're my friends, and I'm going to strangle them. And outside that, I've had far too much coffee today.
Yeah.
which is normally the
well,
case.
I say this, and I say this constantly, is that you are a breath of fresh air in the swamp, because there are so few members who care enough to actually learn and educate
and do the work.
And you know, it's one thing to sit down and actually have meetings and talk about solutions, and another to go on Fox News or OAN and scream about a problem. So
it's what terrifies me and has made the job very, like even this morning, someone was pumping out things on Social Security and that were mathematically just absolutely not true and not telling the truth about the scale of the problem. And now do you respond to someone on their Twitter X account and have your staff spend day and night correcting the fraud? And you realize they're incentivized, whether they're bots or real people, because they want the clickbait.
Yeah.
You know, it's the straw man argument. You know, and my favorite one, I've come to realize people don't understand the difference between millions, billions, and trillions. Like this woman was sending me, this costs $7 million. And I'm trying to explain, you do realize we borrow $250 million every hour.
Yeah, every hour.
We borrow about $60,000, $70,000 every second. About $6 billion a day. Next year, it's going to be just a little shy of $7 billion a day. And there becomes the fraud. Find something that's outrageous, and there are outrageous things in government, and there's solutions to that. We have for almost a decade, I've had a bill to use AI to audit the Pentagon. You realize Pentagon has not passed an audit in 8 years.
Yes.
9 years now.
Yep.
We don't know how many trucks we own. We don't know how many computers we own. We don't know because it's unauditable. That's the report we get from the Auditor Generals. And yet I've gotten it into the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Bill, the last couple of years, and somehow the Senate strips it out because, God forbid, we find out the level of mismanagement in government. Well, we're trying to do that with all of government. And in some ways, that's what DOGE originally was doing. They just did it in a haphazard way. And if you're a listener to this right now, and you're one of those who believes tariffs and DOGE are going to pay for everything, go to doge.gov right now.
Yeah.
You'll see it's less than $200 billion has been identified. And understand, so far in what's been executed, I think is less than 5% of that. Total, now this is, the president's only been in office, since January. But we've count this fiscal year, we're going to take in maybe $75 billion additional customs revenues. We calculated maybe as high as 300 billion additional tax receipts next year. but we're still set to borrow about 2.2, 2.3 trillion next year.
Yeah.
So look,
Doesn't
the
come
tax
close.
receipts are helpful. But if you're borrowing, $250 billion a month, the math problem is so ginormous. And yet the talking heads on social media, on these things, we want your love, but I don't think the political class really wants voters' intellect.
Yeah, there's
No,
no question
they
that they
want
don't
sheep.
want people to understand how bad it is, because there'll be outright revolt.
Yep. And I think you've been to a couple of my get-togethers where I do this whole presentation. I had one 2 mornings ago. Now, it was a more moderate to liberal group. They were sort of social activists, or actually liberal activists. But I will almost show up anywhere to speak because I'm out of my mind. And I did my big show. It was almost 35 minutes of slides, walking them through the demographic. And at the end, it was speaker after speaker after speaker demanding more money and more spending. And going, didn't you just see what I showed you? And
Wait,
we
what
want
did you
more
not
money.
understand?
And you realize for almost everyone that was speaking, they make money. I have a contract to deliver this service. I want more money.
Yeah.
They don't give a damn about their kids, their grandkids, even their own retirement. It's what can I get today?
Yeah.
And if we don't find a way to stabilize this, the bond market will start to run this country. Remember, your country is functionally an insurance company with an army. Think about it. Social Security is an annuity. We provide, in many places, 60, 70% of all health care comes through government in some
based on that
fashion.
first slide that you showed. That's entirely true.
And then we have to pay our interest on it, and then we got an army. That's about what your government is now.
Wow. Well, Congressman,
Always a joy
Don't call
having
me
you
that.
on,
Yeah.
David. Makes
There's hope.
so much joy.
But there is hope. It's just you got to do some hard things. And I had a woman last night criticize me saying, "You keep saying we need to do it. You need to do it." I'm trying, but as long as the public still thinks lunch is free, that there's a free lunch that you can keep handing out money, and some rich person will pay for it.
Yeah.
Until the public steps up and understands this is getting dangerous now. And I don't think the folks here in the state of Arizona and my state legislature, heaven knows the governor's office, are paying attention to the fact that the operating cash fund is substantially used up. The rainy day funds over here to hit conformity with the new updates in the tax code. That's what, $400 billion is an estimate. So how are they going to make that up? And then my prediction is over the next few years, much of the things that are revenue sharing, they're going to get cut back from the federal government because it's borrowed money.
Yeah.
And it's an easy target.
Well,
to a certain extent.
Yeah.
You can claw that back.
It took us a couple months to claw back $9 billion. You remember the whole issue on
the rescissions.
Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a couple of those things. Even though for some of that, it's only like 15% of their budget. The rest they raise other ways. That took 9 months for $9 billion. We borrow 6 a day. So let's do that math. That's like 36 hours or so of borrowing of what was finally in that bill. And that took 2 months of warfare. If you're going to show up in Congress and demand more money, explain to me how I pay for it. And that's the great battle.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you being in the battle, and we'd be lost without you.
Yeah, my wife absolutely hates this job, and
I understand.
I come home angry every night. So we'll see how much more my
Well,
blood pressure can
to your
handle.
credit, you and we've said this before, you're a unicorn. I mean, you live in reality, and you're trying to bring that reality to the populace, and hopefully people are listening. Certainly we've always listened.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is the folks that are going to listen to a podcast like this
are already in tune.
Yeah, you're not normal. You're actually part of the population that actually cares.
Yeah.
And that's our great battle, is the person that's out there busting their backside just to survive. They're poor today because of inflation. Think of that. Across the country, 2019 to the day, the McDonald's menu is up like 40%.
Yeah.
Almost all inflation. If you live here in our community, if you don't make 28% more money than you did before the day Joe Biden got elected, you're poorer today.
Yeah.
People have the right to be angry. Bigger government, more government control, more government domination of the economy is not the solution to raise your wages. We need a more vibrant society and economy. There's ways to do that. It's just a bunch of tough decisions that require a calculator.
Yeah.
Like you always say, politics is math.
It is math.
It is
And
math.
thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. People, you've heard it. Go talk about it to your friends, family.
And remember to like and subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts.
Even when it's
listening.
even when it's hard to hear.
even when might have put a damper on your morning.
Yeah. But the more we share about this, the better off society will be, and we appreciate you.
And it
sharing.
saves the country.
Yeah.
Yes,
and that's
and ultimately that's what this podcast is all about: faith, freedom, free enterprise.
save the country.
Save the country.
Beer.
Yeah. That's a con.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.
God bless.
Take care.